Hi, I still don't have a formal intro. So, I'm a fan of the subreddit called InfoWarrior Rides, which is basically pictures of cars that have a bunch of conspiracy stickers or unhinged ramblings written on the side of the actual body of the vehicle. However, this subreddit, as well as its sister subreddit SchizoWarrior Rides, and a few body cam videos, has led me down a rabbit hole concerning a subject called gangstalking. Then I saw Please David, shout out David, and Gunner TV, shout out Gunner, talk about the same thing, so I feel like we're on to something here. I found out this has made the jump to TikTok through Gunner's Twitch stream, which is perhaps the worst thing that could have breached Reddit containment to another social media app, for reasons that will become apparent in a moment. The video might be shorter just because of this constellation of delusions is difficult to quantify and qualify, but just bear with me. It's not gonna get any less bizarre the longer I draw the intro out, so let's just get started. So when it comes to gangstalking, it's important to define what exactly this whole thing is. In a study regarding online communities and persecutory belief systems, gangstalking is defined by Lustig, Brooks, and Hunt as a persecutory belief system whereby those affected believe that they are being followed, stalked, and harassed by a large number of people, often numbering in the thousands. The harassment is experienced as an accretion of innumerable individually benign acts, such as people clearing their throat, muttering under their breath, or giving dirty looks as they pass on the street. Individuals affected by this belief system congregate in online forums to seek support, share experiences, and interact with other like-minded individuals. Such people identify themselves as targeted individuals. Now you may be wondering,
what is a persecutory belief system?
Don't worry, I got you. Persecutory belief systems can also be called persecutory delusions and can be classified under the bigger phenomenon of psychosis. In a review of persecutory delusions, Bentel, Corcoran, Howard, Blackwood, and Kinderman state, persecutory delusions are a frequently observed clinical phenomenon. Theories have emphasized early experience, perceptual abnormalities, motivational factors, and information processing deficits. The core of our model is an account of the way that casual attributions influence self-representations, which in turn influence future attributions. The attribution self-representation cycle, of course.
I'm nodding like I understand, but I'm not so sure I do.
We argue that biases in this cycle cause negative events to be attributed to external agents and hence contribute to the building of a paranoid worldview. The manifestations of these delusions range from the just kind of unbelievable to the completely impossible, as demonstrated by this woman who was caught shoplifting at Target.
I don't have my own ID though. Somebody took mine.
Okay.
I'm telling you how it is. Somebody is out there using my name and I don't know how they are looking like me, but they are.
Okay.
And this is the second time I've been picked up for something like this.
Okay.
Without leaving the store.
Well, like I said, this is over the February incident, not for today.
I haven't been here since Christmas.
Look at the video. That is going to be you on that video, what I'm looking at, all right?
I don't think it is, though.
That you're saying that. And you also have multiple warrants for theft in other
I know,
cities.
that's what I'm saying. Somebody's out there stealing from stores and using my name.
That's not truthful. That's
yes, it is true.
Okay.
That is the truth.
So you want to go with somebody's just using your name and using your... How are they looking like you?
I don't know. I don't know how they do it.
Okay.
But I'm being harassed and stalked.
Okay. So, like I said, that is...
Okay, so what are we going to do about that? Because every time I've talked to anybody, they just shrug me off.
Well, because I'm looking at videos.
I tried to make police reports with Tumwater several times.
Well, when it's you on these videos...
It's not me, though. I'm telling you, it's not me.
Alright, we're gonna go. Alright, so right now you're under arrest for theft, okay?
I want to know what's going to be done about me being stalked and harassed.
Oh, I need some kind of proof, and then you said these happened in Tumwater.
Her name, you know what, they're in Brentwood Apartments.
Oh,
I know that
February
much.
11th.
I've tracked that much down.
What I'm saying is these videos I'm looking at, the one I just looked at.
I know, I understand that. I understand that it looks like me, but it's not me, okay? It's not me. There's some girl out there, there's actually more than one, there's like 3 or 4 of them, and they're stalking and gang stalking me and harassing me. They're dressing up like me and going into stores using ritualistic manners. What do I do? Yes, ritualistic.
Okay.
Like witchcraft.
Persecutory delusions are more common among people with diagnosed psychotic disorders like schizotypal disorders, bipolar disorder, and some personality disorders, but can also be caused by things like substance abuse, emotional abuse, and existing family medical history of one or more of those other conditions. The thing that really sucks is that in the common lexicon, you want to tell someone who thinks the whole world is out to get them that they should touch grass. However, according to Freeman and Garrity, this can actually make their delusions worse.
What the hell is even that?
As a result, as stated by the Oxford University Department of Psychology, people experiencing paranoid delusions on this scale live a more inactive life, which contributes to a higher risk of developing high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and lifespan shorted by 14.5 years. I'm assuming this has to go with the level of anxiety that forces them to interact with the outside world less and less and less as the delusion gets worse, but that's just my conjecture. According to papers by Freeman and Garrity, Bergstein, Weitzman, and Solomon, Hartley, Boroclow, and Haddock,
Hot, get out, noodles, seesaw, oopsie, lap sweat, hoo-ha, jitters, sir wide bottom.
these are the things that describe the symptoms of someone who may be experiencing this specific paranoid delusion. They can experience anxiety, depression, disturbed sleep, low self-esteem, rumination, and suicidal ideation. These symptoms also include something called pathological jealousy, which is defined by Kingham and Gordon as a psychological disorder characterized by a pervasive preoccupation with the belief that one's spouse or romantic partner is being unfaithful, despite the absence of any real or substantiated evidence. Now, on its face, that doesn't really sound like it's related to the whole phenomenon of believing everyone is out to get you. However, pathological jealousy can manifest in a lot of different ways, such as extreme obsessive behavior, delusions, and overvaluing ideas related to the object of jealousy. Think of it as two circles on a Venn diagram with a lot of overlap. However, what stands out to me is other work by Kingham and Gordon, which stipulates that people who experience pathological or delusional jealousy are extremely insecure and have a high likelihood of developing anxiety disorders. Now, I don't have a source for this is purely my own conjecture, but I feel like the way that this sense of jealousy can manifest in people within these gang-stalking communities is that they are so insecure they loop around to being, quote, a targeted individual because they're so jealous of the attention that other people receive. I think it can kind of be like where you hate yourself so intensely that you loop all the way back around to thinking that you're better than everyone else, kind of like horseshoe theory, but less about politics and more about self-image. Another central concept of this, as just as I stated, is the targeted individual. Basically, what this means is that the person experiencing a paranoid delusion feels that they are an individual who is being targeted by a larger conspiracy and all these individual actors within the conspiracy. That's why you see a lot of these TikToks of people crashing out over a random stranger blowing their nose or just walking past them, and sometimes they'll tag it, quote, targeted individual. So, if someone in your life starts tagging their panic attack posting with targeted individual or TI, genuinely, it is time to intervene.
Stop it. Get some help.
Looping back to Reddit, people experiencing persecutory delusions have formed online communities numbering in the tens of thousands. According to Mike McFate with the New York Times, a group his interviewee belonged to was organized around the conviction that its members are victims of a sprawling conspiracy to harass thousands of everyday Americans with mind control weapons and armies of so-called gangstalkers. The goal, as one gangstalking website put it, is, quote, to destroy every aspect of a targeted individual's life. McFate quotes Dr. Lorraine Sheridan, who authored one of the only studies on this phenomenon at the time the article was published. Sheridan said, what's scary for me is that there are no counter sites that try and convince targeted individuals that they are delusional. They end up in a closed ideology echo chamber. The existence of these communities online has created an entire cottage industry of books detailing all of these conspiracies that you could allegedly be involved in and that could work into your delusion. If you're interested in looking at those websites, take a look at Please David's video because he looked at not only the books but also a number of different websites. However, it's important to note that this is not a brand new phenomenon. The concept of gang-stalking and persecutory delusions goes all the way back to the 1700s with James Tilley Matthews. Matthews was born in Britain in 1770. Around the age of 20, Matthews was an established merchant who traveled to France with a Welsh philosopher named David Williams as a political mediator between Britain and France, which is kind of insane because imagine the manager of your local Burger King hopping on a plane with his buddy Dave acting as political envoys to mediate the political tension between Russia and Ukraine or America and Iran. Bonkers. This is kind of important because at the time, the Girondins,
So say good morning!
who were a break-off group of the Jacobins,
A jackal! Jackal! It's a jackal! It looks like a jackal! 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 It's a jackal! Jackal!
had the most political sway in the midst of the French Revolution. In June of 1793, the main body of Jacobins overtook the Girondins, and Matthews was put in prison for his ties to the losing party until 1796, when he was released for poor mental health. When Matthews got back to London, he started accusing multiple government officials of treason, conspiracy to assassinate him, and political persecution. He was admitted to Bedlam Hospital in 1979 after interrupting debates in the House of Commons and harassing public officials.
What, is this a communist country or something? No, this is America!
This is where he, for some reason, admitted to being a deep state agent who was then betrayed and abandoned for some unknown reason.
I told you it was complicated.
Now, changing planes at O'Hare is complicated. This is just... Franny, what is this?
Now here's where we get to the strangest part of this case and how it fits into this larger manifestation of something like InfoWarrior rides. Matthews drew something he called the heirloom, which was allegedly being used by, quote, a gang of criminals and spies skilled in pneumatic chemistry that had taken up residence at London Wall in Moorfields close to Bedlam, and were tormenting him by means of rays emitted by the machine. Which has never been discovered, never been observed, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, probably didn't exist. According to Matthews, the specific attacks were as follows. The first was called lobster cracking, where magnets prevented blood from circulating. Don't know how that works. And the second was the most lemony snicket ass title of apoplexy working with the nutmeg grater.
What in the goddamn hell are you talking about?
Where fluids were somehow beamed through his skin, muscle, and bone straight into his brain. Are we sure about that? He also stated that people named, quote, the middleman, the glove woman, Sir Archie, and a man simply called Bill were responsible for the attacks. Because of this, Matthews became the first documented case of what we now know as schizophrenia. The second biggest case is that of Francis Edward Dick. Dick was born in 1926 in Hampstead, New York. In early 1944, he enlisted in the army as a private and basically did his little army guy thing for a while during World War II. When the war ended, he wanted to go into law and succeeded until 1958 when he got disbarred for what is referred to as incoherent arguments. In 1961, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital for 2 months, and then 4 years later, in 1965, he said and decided to dip out to Poland for a little while. Yippee! My brother in Christ, if off to Poland solved all your life's problems, I feel like way more people would have figured it out by then. From 1965 to 1990, Dick wrote about something called the Worldwide Communist Gangster Computer God and its conspiracy for world domination through what he called Frankenstein radio controls. Both phrases that I think would be fantastic as a band or performer name. Now, if you feel bad for him now, I'm gonna ask you to take off what Bose calls your empathy cap and prepare yourself for what I'm about to tell you. This dude was mad racist. Like, think of your most racist relative, he was more racist than that.
No way.
Dick believed that this computer god was the product of an ancient extinct Polish population, which begs the question as to why he thought f***ing off to Poland would solve all his problems, but I digress. Then, like most mentally unwell racists, he blamed it all on Jewish people and then denied the Holocaust for some reason.
Oh my god, no way!
Dick died in 1996 in Queens, New York, of which I only have to say, rest in piss, bitch. The third case is writer Gloria Naylor. Naylor was born in 1950 in New York, the daughter of Mississippi sharecroppers who left the segregated South for Harlem, New York. In 1963, the Naylors moved to Queens and her mother became a Jehovah's Witness. Even though she was a star student with a passion for literature, she postponed her college education after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in her senior year of high school. Instead, she became a JW missionary in New York, North Carolina, and Florida. However, she only did this for 7 years because she didn't feel like this was actually contributing positively to the world around her, which is like, fair. Totally understandable, you do you. Naylor worked her way through college as a phone operator before graduating with a degree in English in 1981 from Brooklyn College. She then earned her MA 2 years later from Yale. I couldn't find anything in the Wikipedia article regarding her claims of being gang stalked, but what I did find was her book titled 1996, which was published in 2005. And is described as a, quote, half-memoir, half-fiction account of being under surveillance by the NSA. The only thing I could actually find detailing what's in the book is a Reddit post from RS Book Club, which looks like it's affiliated with or is created by fans of the Red Scare podcast. I'm gonna throw up a screen cap on screen. I encourage you to pause and take a look. I had difficulty finding evidence as to why it is that she felt she was being surveilled or why she was so deeply entrenched in this delusion. However, given what I know about the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses, that probably didn't help whatever existing problems she already had. Naylor died in 2016 in the Virgin Islands. The next one is the most recent one, and personally I find it the most something of all time. I don't know how else to refer to it. This is about Isaac Brock of the band Modest Mouse. Isaac Brock was born in 1975 in Helena, Montana, and grew up in what is described hippie communes and churches before moving to Washington at age 11.
Long, beautiful hair, shining. Hey, Square, expand your mind! The doors of perception are open for business!
Thanks for the tip, Homer.
Everywhere, daddy, daddy. Never fear! The cosmic fool is here!
Brock moved to Washington, D.C. in 1992 before going back and forth between Washington State and D.C. before finally settling down in Seattle. Again, I haven't been able to find clear statements or details on how he thinks he's allegedly being gangstalked, but I did find this blog post which allegedly quotes at least one statement from Brock direct. I'm going to throw it up on screen and let you pause to read. I can't make any inference as to his mental health, but I know that alcohol abuse probably didn't make whatever existing problems he had any better. I would think that if anyone had more information about this, it would probably be the world's busiest music nerd, Anthony Fantano. But I didn't think it would be a productive effort to email him and start out with, hey, I'm doing a video on gangstalking. However, let me speak from personal experience. I went to an evangelical Christian school kindergarten through 8th grade. A central part of what we were taught as our theology curriculum was that people who were not Christian were actively out to get us, that the devil was 100% a real perceivable entity that was out to get us, and that we had to constantly surveil ourselves and each other in order to ensure that we were not, quote, going against God's plan.
What in the goddamn hell are you talking about?
This was because we were also taught that as Christians we were some sort of special population separate from non-Christians who were being persecuted on a spiritual, political, and social level. Right, so another core tenet of this theological practice was the idea of being
in the world, but not of the world.
Because this secular world was, you guessed it, also out to get us with all its pop music and jeans and civil rights for marginalized people. I was very lucky to grow up with relatively liberal and left-leaning caregivers like my mom and my grandfather. I did not end up with the same level of religious trauma and anxiety that perhaps other kids I grew up with did. I ended up with childhood trauma and an anxiety disorder for many, many other reasons. The sentence I have said is true, parse it later. I also had a mild flirtation with mainstream Wicca, which also stressed that you had to use the natural world to put up constant defenses and guards against evil forces that you were, you guessed it, actively out to get you specifically. I don't know if these are the kinds of belief systems and theologies that Isaac Brock was exposed to as a child, but I know that if it was any of those, it might be why he and others like him put so much stock into the idea that they specifically are being targeted and persecuted and put in harm's way by some unseen but allegedly very real entity.
God will make you pay. Smite them!
He's cooking something up.
So I think something that's important to note is that while this is a very nebulous topic, there are some through lines that I've noticed in watching commentary on gangstalking videos and in doing research for this video. I think the biggest through line is that the person believes they are a targeted individual, but they can't prove that they are not a targeted individual. Like, you can't prove that the person standing across the street from you is just talking on their phone but not watching you, and you also can't prove that they are. They're stuck in a superposition between the delusion being real and the delusion being fake. The second is a fixation on the use of completely unheard or fantastical devices being used to target this person. Like, let me give you for instance. My mom is the primary care support for my grandparents who are both in their 80s. My grandpa goes to the VA for a lot of his medical appointments, and sometimes only he can go into the exam room, which means my mom has to sit out in the waiting room until his appointment is over. And that also means that random mentally unwell people will just come up to her and start saying shit. Recently, when she took my grandfather to the eye clinic to get his cataracts examined, this random man saw her talking about needing a new phone and decided that he needed to tell her that he needed a new phone too because he smashed his old one with a hammer. Now I'm sure you're asking,
Bobby, why did he smash his phone with a hammer?
Well, I'm here to tell you that the reason he smashed his phone with a hammer is because allegedly the government infected his phone with a virus that allowed ghosts to haunt his phone and monitor his conversations with his friends and family and then report them back to the government.
No way! No way, no way!
Now, given that, I'm sure you're asking,
what could he be doing that would make him think the government is monitoring his texts and phone calls?
What the fuck is this? I don't know.
However, if you're taking away anything from this video, it is that when you are a person with a gangstalking delusion, it could literally be anything. You wiped your ass the wrong way, you got diet soda instead of full sugar, you accidentally bought organic cabbage when you went to buy regular. It could literally be anything.
He's just standing there, menacingly! Get out of there, SpongeBob!
Another through line is that there is some supernatural element like ghosts or aliens or something like that.
Well, how do you guys say goodbye? Oh,
I had to ask.
That one's less common, but I feel like it's common enough to be at least a minor through line. Here's the caveat for this whole video. While I understand these people are not mentally well, I think there is a discussion to be had about what to do when a person's individual mental health starts negatively affecting the people around them. People in these videos are going about their daily lives in proximity to the person recording them, and they're suddenly being accused of stalking and conspiracy to commit violent crimes against this person, even though there's no proof to prove that they are. Ultimately, what may significantly help to mitigate the mental health issues of people experiencing these delusions is a more robust mental health care system. A funded and functional mental health care system might be able to identify these problems way earlier. They may be able to intervene way earlier and treat them way earlier. This might save these people a lot of anxiety and stress, and in turn reduce the potential negative behaviors that harm them and the people around them. However, I live in America. And according to my high school economics teacher, a government with a funded and functional social safety net meant to provide for these people, you know, the people that it governs and is responsible to care for, is
communism.
And
America is not a communist country.
You just don't understand.
You're right, I don't.
That being said, that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for tomorrow when it'll be tomorrow. Bye.